This morning, one of my staff went to buy a barbecue at Bunnings, and it's the end of the holy month of Ramadan tomorrow, and so we're having a barbecue. And the guy at Bunnings asked him, well, where do you work? And he responded, the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. The Bunnings guy didn't hesitate for a moment to say, if I was in Darwin this week, I would have shot them all. And what he was referring to were the 88 Afghan men who were peacefully protesting outside the detention centre the other week. So it gets you thinking, what's going on here? Where does that come from? How can I see what I've seen in the last week? Whether it was those 88 men sitting out there for 8 hours peacefully protesting the fact that they were being rejected or left in limbo for purely political reasons, and left without water for 8 hours. 15 of them end up in hospital severely dehydrated as a negotiation tactic. You wouldn't do that to a dog, but yet it was okay to do that to these 88 men. Find out a few days ago that there are 180 plus children in detention in Darwin haven't been going to school for the last 5 months. Government didn't care. Inconvenience, not their concern. 180 children for the last 5 months being denied an education. Many of them unaccompanied children. Happening right here. As of the end of July, 4,640 people in detention. The most we've had in 200 years. Passes, Howard. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the last election where stop the boats, turn them around. We're being flooded. We've got to be afraid. And I'm sitting here trying to make sense of what is going on. Why are we so afraid? Asylum seekers have nothing to do with any of the actual real issues we face day to day. None of them are terrorists. None of them are taking your jobs. A lot of them aren't even allowed to work. They're not taking your pension. All asylum seekers aren't even able to access Centrelink, let alone get 4 times what a pensioner gets, as I keep getting emailed. None of them are growing Big Australia. None. Of last year, of all the visas granted, 0.03% were for asylum seekers. There are 76 other nations that take more asylum seekers than we do on wealth. The number of people we get by boat in a year, Pakistan gets in a day. And yet we're panicking. They're threatening our way of life, our population, our safety, our security. But all I see day in, day out is the human face and reality of people who have had to flee and sacrifice everything just to be free like me and you. And yet I'm being told I should be afraid, I should have no compassion, I should close our borders, close our hearts, not give a shit. And the challenge for us is going, what is going on in our nation? The last election, it was a race to the bottom. A Gillard government on the back of Rudd saying, we are not going to politicise this issue. We're going to be compassionate. And yet they sunk to the bottom just like the Liberal Party. Who can be tougher? Who can be crueler? Who can show how much they can really make people suffer who are fleeing for their very lives, as though they haven't suffered enough? And you sit there on every indicator, whether it's financially, and think we're spending 7 times as much every day to detain someone than to have them sitting here with you today. Sitting here and going, we would rather drive people to the point of suicide and despair than have them healthy and safe in the community. We would rather break every single human rights treaty that we're a signatory to than allow these people to have a fair go. We would rather allow most of them to starve like bloody animals in absolute destitution with no work, no income, no health care, than allow these people to be healthy, strong people participating. The people I work with are just simply wanting a fair go. They're not threatening anything. But what is at risk here is our very moral fabric. Who are we? What does it bloody mean to be an Australian? What does it mean to have compassion? What does it mean to live in a democracy? If we're able to treat people who are innocent victims of oppression in this way, if we're able to turn our backs on them, this idea in this nation of ours that somehow we can decide who should live and die, who should get a fair go and not, this idea that somehow we're the deserving. I deserve my freedom. I deserve my safety. My future children deserve every opportunity. But if you're an asylum seeker child, you don't deserve an education. We can lock you away, as there's some 700 children in detention right now. Children, 2/3 of them are unaccompanied minors, orphans, locked away in detention centres. That's okay. We can do that. We can make that call. And I sit down and say to people, how can we do this? What are you afraid of? And they're sitting going, well, it's our country and we can decide who's going to come in and we've got to protect our borders. And protect them from what? How the hell are you more deserving? It's a damn human lottery. Lottery where you're born. I happen to be lucky and be born here. What if I was born in Afghanistan or Iraq or Sri Lanka or Zimbabwe? Absolutely random. What if they came for you tomorrow and your wife tomorrow or your husband tomorrow or your child tomorrow? What would you do then? I don't think you'd give a shit what you had to do to get out. I would pay anyone that I could. I would use any smuggler I could get anywhere near. I would do whatever it takes to keep my family safe, to keep my mother and my sister safe. And I'd make no damn apology for it. Sit here and talk about the war and people smuggling. Smugglers are actually smuggling life and hope. Whatever you personally think of them, that's actually what they're smuggling. Life. Freedom for people. What war is actually happening here is a war on human rights, is a war on asylum seekers. This idea that somehow we have a mortgage and an ownership of freedom and of a good life and of prosperity, and these people don't deserve it. The 9 years since I started this organization, to sit there and to see the suffering of people and to keep asking myself, why? To sit there and have people try to take their own lives in front of me and have to try to physically stop them as they break down and weep out of just the despair of 6 or 7 years in absolute limbo, just living like an animal in absolute destitution. The experiences and stories I've had of having to deal with children try to take their own lives, little kids try to hang themselves and poison themselves because they can't bear the experience of being in detention. The hundreds and hundreds of stories of people sitting there and in explicit detail telling me about how they were tortured, raped, set on fire, how half their family is dead or missing. I'm having to sit there and comfort fathers when I watch this Abbott government try to talk, unfortunately not an Abbott government, Abbott trying to talk about we would reintroduce temporary protection visas. And I think about the thousands of men I sat there with who spent 6, 7, 8 years without their wives and children. I think, who could make anyone pay such a price? Imagine that. Imagine that being your wife or husband or child and knowing you're going to miss that entire childhood. Imagine fleeing for your very life and giving up everything that you love and coming to a country where you're either locked away on a Guantanamo Bay detention center, which is what Christmas Island is. You've got no access to the courts. You're there for an indefinite period of time. We'll spend $1 billion to keep it open. Or you're in a community where the prison is poverty and despair and isolation and limbo. The bars are just invisible, but you're a prisoner in this community as well. And asking, why are people paying this price? We need to start having an honest conversation about this. We need to start talking about, why are we afraid? People always sit there and go, oh, you're just a lefty and you just a rat bag and you just support this party and this party and this party. And I sit there and go, these issues are not political issues. I couldn't care less about any political party, to tell you the truth. We don't ever endorse any political party for that reason. I keep saying to people, these are not political issues, these are issues of morality. These are issues of morality. It is immoral for me to have to sit there with a family that's going hungry, that can't work, and all they want to do is put some food on the table so that their little kids and their wife don't go hungry. It's immoral when I sit there with a broken man who spent 6 or 7 years in a detention center and is now a ghost who will never ever experience wellness or a sense of who he is ever again. It is immoral when I sit there and know that there are 700 children locked away in remote detention centers because apparently they pose a security to me and to you. These are issues of morality. And these are issues we should be angry about and passionate about and sit there and go, let's deal with race. Let's deal with our fears. Let's deal with our government only represents what we in a community are feeding them and responding to. Let's be more courageous than that. Let's be more better than that about we're this extraordinary, beautiful, amazing country, Australia, built on refugees and migrants. I sit there and I talk with my mum and she sits there and goes, this country doesn't want me. My mum's been here now 42 years now. And she sits there and goes, this country doesn't want me. They wouldn't have let me into this country now. Apparently I'm not good enough. I'm not needed anymore. I'm not wanted in this country. And for her to sit there and think, when she's sacrificed her whole life and all she's done is contribute to this society, and to be told, you know, you have no worth or value. And that's as a migrant, when you feel what it's like as a person seeking asylum in this country, to be constantly told you're not welcomed and wanted in this country, to be vilified and demonized. And to sit to go, we need to start talking about racism in this country. We need to start talking about our fears in this country. We need to start saying we're not going to get hijacked by fear. You know, we're going to have another conversation. We are afraid about, you know, can we pay off our mortgage? Can we find a job? Will our kids get the education and the healthcare they need, and so on? But none of these issues have anything to do with the next boatload of people that are coming. They're not about to take any of those things from you. All they're going to do is contribute to making this country a more peaceful, beautiful, and diverse nation. That's what they're going to bring, as refugees always have brought to this country, like migrants have as well. And we need to start being able to speak about these things. Not in a way that is dogmatic and says, I know better than you, but to sit there and engage people and go, well, what are we actually scared of? And have that conversation everywhere. From my staff member who, after having that guy sit there and say, I would have shot them, he didn't walk away from that. He had that conversation. He went and made that complaint and go, this is not okay to allow these sort of things to be unchallenged. Whether it's across your kitchen table, church on Sunday, in your workplace, at your sporting club, wherever it is, to sit there and to be brave enough to sit there and say, I'm actually going to speak out. Because at the end of the day, the only way we're going to change this issue to a point where it's no longer political, but a humanitarian issue like it's always been, is when we actually start having the courage to speak out. And I am hopeful, I really am, from the time that I started the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre to where it is 9 years down the track, the thousands upon thousands of everyday Australians who come and give their time and energy, from little 12-year-old kids doing food drives at their schools to people well into their 80s who come and volunteer to answer the phones. There is a lot of compassion out there, and a lot of Australians who care about this. You are not alone in this. You're not alone in actually being concerned about what's going on and being scared about what's going on. And you can change the world. There's no point just sitting there just being angry and not doing something. Action is what is needed. And what's beautiful I've seen in the last 9 years are the thousands of people who have come through our centre, the more than 7,000 that we have assisted, the more than 600 volunteers we have right now. It is a place of hope where asylum seekers can come. And this is without any federal government support. And we provide food, counselling, casework, English classes, employment assistance for those who are allowed to work, legal help. But it is a place of hope and a place of sanctuary. It's about saying that every single one of us can change the world. Every single one of us can actually take a stand against racism and fear and ignorance and start those conversations and speak out. Whether it's volunteering your time somewhere like here, or whether it's getting out there and just every time you see that, calling it on it, speaking out about it. Because it's the failure to do so that allows this to breed and to grow. And to sit there and actually have that conversation and go, well, do you know the facts? And I go, oh, I know the facts. I go, okay, well then what is personally happening for you that you think having this compassion is going to cost you? What are these people going to take from you? We take so few. All these people on these boats are actually refugees. Do you know what they're fleeing from? They're fleeing from torture, imprisonment, execution. Do you know why they're fleeing that? Because they're wanting the basic rights that you've got. They want to be able to speak out. They want to practice their religion peacefully. They want to be a member of a union. As a woman, they want to get an education. They want to be allowed to leave their home without a man accompanying them. The most basic fundamental liberties and freedoms. I have them and you have them. Why can't they? We people sit there and they go, oh, no, we need to be tough, we need to be hard. I go, well, put yourself in that position. They're like, nah, I'm never going to be in that position. And that's one of the problems with this nation, is this idea about a lot of us haven't had that struggle. Or if we have, we forget where we come from. And sitting there and going, well, just for a moment, if that was you in that situation, what would you do? If that was you, if that was your family on that leaking boat, would you want us to turn them back? And turn them back to where? Turn them back to where? Or should we follow in the steps of the US back in the 40s, where they sent Jews fleeing the Holocaust back, where they ended up in concentration camps? Is that what we want to do? What if that was your child in a detention center? Oh, my child would never be in that position. But what if that was? Would you sleep at night? What if you were on a temporary protection visa and you were temporary, your freedom was temporary, your future was temporary? Could you face another day? Could you get up in the morning? What if you're sitting there with all these amazing skills in this country and you're just desperate to give back, but they won't let you work? And all you want to do is put some food on the table, pay your taxes, do a hard day's honest work, but you're not allowed to. What if you face another week where you haven't got a cent to your name and you're looking at your family and going, I don't know how we're not going to starve this week? What would that be like for you? What would it be like when your children get sick and you go to take them to a doctor, but you don't have a Medicare card, you don't have $1 to your name, and they say, we can't see you, sorry, it's not life-threatening enough. And you've got to sit there and suffer that humiliation as a mother and father, as your sick child sits there in your arms. How would you sit with that? I've yet to find anyone that sits there and goes, that'd be okay. I would wear that. I'd be fine with that. I would accept that for me. I would accept that for my family. Because of course no one would. Then what's so different between what we want and who we are and that next person you see on the news, on that leaky boat, or an asylum seeker you might come across in the community, which is where most of them are. And most actually don't come by boat. They actually come by aeroplane. But I think Tony Abbott in a Qantas lounge, going crazy, won't have the same political effect as his boat phone. We need to be having those conversations with people. And we need to strip it back to that, because that's actually what we're talking about. We're talking about human beings like me and you. We're talking about people with the same hopes and desires and dreams as me and you. We're talking about people who just by bad luck are in a country where they can't be free. They can't be free. And where they will die if they try to be free. And all they want is not to die. All they want is their children not to grow up in a country that will always be at war. What they want is not to think about when will they come for me, or when will it be my turn to be tortured and detained for no reason. When I work with these people who are seeking asylum, I am constantly inspired by just how extraordinary these people are. Michael, let me know when I need to wrap up, because I have no sense. I'm inspired because here are people that are sitting there and are actually willing to sacrifice. It's amazing. I think about that, about would I be willing to do that? Would I be willing so that I could be free, so that my country could be free? Would I be willing to risk my life? How extraordinary it is to put yourself on a leaky boat, to send every single dollar you've got to your name, to spend it on this one in a million shot, and go on these boats that the chances are they're going to sink. I've asked a lot of asylum seekers this, why do you get on these boats? And they tell me stories about, the first boat I got on sank and we had to go back to shore. The second one did, and the third one did, and finally the fourth one did it. And we're on a boat and no food for a week, and basically sleeping in our own feces, and sitting going, well, how could you have gone through this? And they're sitting going to me, well, I could either die in my country, or I can have this one shot at freedom, and I'd rather die at sea like a human being, die free, than die like a prisoner in my own country. It's amazing to sit there and to have to give all that up, and to risk all of that, and to know that you're never going to see your homeland again, you're never going to see your family again, or most of them, and then to come here and from nothing, and against all this injustice, to not lose hope. And I suppose a lot of it in terms of being able to speak out and take a stand on these issues, and why 9 years down the track I feel just as angry and just as passionate about this, is because I sit there and I look at these people and I think how easy it could just be me. How easy it could just be me that's fleeing. And I look at these people broken, courageous, resilient, afraid, and my heart just breaks. Every single day I just watch people just carry the most extraordinary grief and suffering and loss. Last night we had our weekly legal service, and I'm talking to this woman from China, and she's recounting to me her stories of being in a brainwashing camp, in a hard labor camp, where they tortured her and interrogated her and forced her to denounce everything she believed in, and how after being released she spent the last 6 years every week having to pay back her debt for being held in this brainwashing hard labor camp, and what it was like to be in a country where you can be tortured whenever the government wants you to. Your life can be taken from you at any moment, and your freedom can be taken at any moment, and what it's like to live like that. Or a couple who are Christians from a Muslim country sitting there and going, if I go back to our country and I want to keep going to church and I want to keep practicing my faith, they'll kill me, they'll torture me, I'm a danger to that government. And yet around the corner, in every corner around the city today, there are people doing that right now so freely, without a second thought, are they? But yet to think that could cost you your life in these sort of countries. I don't want to forget all these stories, and I don't want to ever forget our history of what we've done to people seeking asylum in this country, what we continue to do. This government is almost no better than the one before. As long as we continue a policy of mandatorily detaining people who pose no risk to our country, we are failing. As long as we keep locking children up, we are failing. As long as we keep putting people on offshore processing centres beyond the reach of our courts and basic natural justice, we are failing our country. As long as we fail to provide a basic safety net so that people can live like human beings, we continue to lose our way. And I think what I just encourage all of you to do is take a stand, speak out, say something, do something. Do not be silent on this issue. There is too much at stake. This is life and death. Life and death for the people that we work with. And when I see these governments now, Julia Gillard talking about dumping people in East Timor, expanding more detention centres, leaving kids to rot away in detention. Who is benefiting? Who is being kept safe by this? What is the cost to us that this continues to happen in our country, in our name? I can't stomach it. I am sick of it. I don't want to hear another story of a person who, one of the young women I was working with got raped while being homeless while sleeping at Flinders Street. I don't want to see another family come in and tell me they haven't eaten in 3 days. I don't want to see another bloody 8-month pregnant woman telling me, I haven't seen a doctor once because I don't have a fucking cent to my name. I don't want to see any of this anymore. I'm sick of it. I am sick of having to try to convince a person not to walk out of my office and go jump off a bridge because that's what they want to do. I am sick of having to sit there and comfort mothers and fathers who are going out of their damn mind because they haven't seen their children in 4 years and afraid they never will see them. Sick of getting calls from people desperate on Christmas Island going, I cannot bear this anymore. I've been here a year and I don't know what's happening and I'm scared they're going to send me back to Sri Lanka. Or another Afghan tell me, why are they freezing my application and will not consider it? Oh, because it's an election year, I have to tell them. No more of this. We need to act now. I'm hopeful now with a minority government, there might be some chance. Most of the independents and the Greens have expressed a more compassionate view. It's never going to come from Labor or the Liberal government. Both are bereft of any moral vision or compass. But the hope is that if we can be mobilised and organised and just keep speaking the truth, because what we have is the moral high ground. The truth is we are engaging in activity that is immoral, illegal, and is damaging people. It is damaging children. It is robbing them of their childhood. It is robbing families of their basic fundamental human rights. And we are doing it in this country. This is not happening in a China or in a Zimbabwe. This is happening in our country. And for us to go, we're not going to put up with this anymore. We've had enough of this. We're not going to vote for this. We're not going to support this anymore. And we're not going to go silent. So this is what I encourage you to do. Do something. Donate, volunteer, advocate. All your local members are going to be feeling very fragile right now. Now is the time to go and say to them, what are you going to do? Why are the children in detention? They should be out by Christmas. Do not go and support East Timor. Haven't we learned from Nauru, where we had something like 40 people airlifted out of there because they became so suicidal, that we left that open to keep 2 men in detention, that we had 93 babies born there, people going on hunger strikes out of despair. What do we think detention does to people? It makes them sick. It breaks them. It destroys them. We don't want to support that. Come October 9, we want Afghans' cases to start being considered, not frozen anymore. Really simple things you could be asking for. A fair go. That's all. No special treatment, just a fair go.